Ooh, 2 minutes late. Hey, hello and welcome. How y'all doing? Are you guys stressing as hard as my buddy Mark here? Look at the look on his face. He's from England and he is stressing hard. This is a crazy session. It's kind of too crazy for the first session in the morning. If you're here to stare at C#, you're in the wrong session. This is a ton of demo, very little PowerPoint. I'm going to kind of give Mark about 5 minutes here while he tries to figure out his video issues. A little bit of PowerPoint up front, and then we're going to demo. This is a session about, well, it's supposed to be about the future of software, but much of it is about stuff that we're doing today. So I'm Tim. This is the uncomfortable about Tim slide. What can I say that's unique? This is the 14th straight tech ed that I have spoke at. Can you believe that? Wow, time flies. 14 years of tech ed. I'm the figurehead, as it were, of two companies. One does custom application development, many of the cool demos you see in the keynotes. That's kind of our stuff. And then I founded a product company earlier this year that does, kiosk and interactive digital signage. Enough about Tim. I've been working for or with Microsoft for over 20 years. I could do Bill Gates stories all day long if you want me to. No, we're not going to do that. I worked on a product team in the late 90s, Microsoft's first foray into the internet. And I've certainly stood on stage with execs throughout those many years with a stressed look like Mark. Today, I'm not stressed. There's a wild demo at the end that I will completely screw up, and you'll find it amusing. And right about, let's see, this is 8:30 to 9:45, right? At about 9:30, you're going to see 30 or 40 of the speakers, of the Microsoft people, walk into the back of the room just to see me flail going like this in front of the Kinect. All right, so I thought it would be relevant and put this in context that a little about how I came to be standing in front of you today. I went to Catholic school. I've been doing this a long time. I have gray hair. I went to Catholic school. We didn't have computers. We didn't have programming. We had Latin. I joined, right out of college, I joined EDS when Ross Perot was running the company, if you remember that name. This is what I did for my first 12 months. Anybody as old as me know what this is? Just shout it out. We can be informal. Does anybody of you people who knew that was JCL, do you know what this does? Anyone? We're bringing you back 30 years here. What was that? It does this. And for you people here who are under 25, that's a DOS prompt. This is the way we used to copy files. All right, I did that for a year, and then I graduated to be able to do this. And I imagine many of you know what this is, right? This most certainly is COBOL. What's exciting about this listing is, remember when Level 77 came out? That was like a godsend. What is Level 77? That's like a static memory variable. We didn't even have that. Everything was persisted to tape. If we wanted a memory variable, you had to go out to disk or to tape to get it. If you effed up, and I'm being recorded, so I got to watch my mouth here, but if you screwed up, back then, compiles cost money. Every compile you did cost money. So when I screwed up, my boss yelled at me. How many times do we hit F5 a day? F5. Can you imagine? Right, so times have changed. I'm trying to put this in context. And I worked at an IBM shop. I wore a suit every day, but we had a genuine IBM XT for those of you who are over 40. Remember those? $10,000 with a 10 meg drive. That was revolutionary. 640K, right? 10 megs of space, $10,000. Anyways, We didn't have the internet back there. We had those BBS things, and I'm downloading compilers, and from IBM I got this Turbo Pascal thing, and I just went crazy. I think it's interesting for us C# people now how the semicolon has become prevalent. I basically got married on a semicolon. Me and my Asian buddies in college hung out in the computer room. This beautiful woman walked in cursing and compiling and all this. I looked at her code, put in a semicolon. It was Pascal. It compiled, and she said, "I will marry you." This is 30 years ago, and I did marry my college sweetheart, and we are still married. So that's my relevance to the semicolon. To show you how long I've been doing this, I tested in SQL Server. This is the first version of SQL Server. Microsoft bought it from Sybase. When I took this test, I flew up to Redmond, and Bill Gates, with me and like 40 people, Bill Gates kept peeking in the door to see how we were doing, right? We were basically grandfathered into this thing. Do you see, does it show my number? That is my actual MCP number. For those of you under 25, I'm guessing your certified professional number is in the tens of millions. Have I set it up yet that I'm old? I'm old. All right, enough. But Mark's still stressing, so we're still doing a little PowerPoint here. This is the product team I worked on. I was a dev lead on an architecture team, 2,500 people on my product, and another 2,500 on the Windows NT side. Enormous, stressful project, about a year of 16-hour days. But that's how I learned how Microsoft built software and kind of launched my career. So anybody remember this one? This is I worked on arguably the worst server product in Microsoft history. Some people are into code names. That would be Microsoft Site Server. This is when Microsoft was late to the internet, and Bill Gates says, every product team will have an internet story. This was designed to compete with Lotus Domino. Unfortunately, like many Microsoft products, this was a purchased product. Our job was to integrate 13 purchased technologies, and that was a bear to do. Anyways, what else are we talking about? Yeah, so back in those days, I was very proud that when we shipped, look at that mustache, by the way. No one told me how stupid I looked, including my wife. Back then, I was so proud that Bill Gates would send emails like, "You're doing a good job, guys, and keep it going. Keep working 20 hours a day. We'll feed you." Anyone know K2? As bad as Site Server was, K2 revolutionized Microsoft. I didn't tell you this. I'm not a Microsoft employee, so I can critique them where they deserve it and praise them where they deserve it without any repercussions, really, although they are recording me. K2 was arguably one of the best revolutionary products Microsoft ever did. Technically, it was called NT Option Pack, but this was IIS 4.0. This is the first web server that really made our lives significant. I'm assuming everyone's a developer in the room. Do we have any evil networking people that have snuck in? There's one right there. All right, I'm going to target you for the rest of this presentation. So any designer type people in the room? The ones that are grossly overpaid? No? No black turtleneck designer type people? All right, we're mostly with friends except for that guy right there. The guy that prevents us from shipping. So I wrote a bunch of really unread books that no one cared about, and you certainly don't care about them. You may see some relatively famous people in there, Scott Hanselman and Rocky and stuff like that. In fact, I met Scott Hanselman. There he is, right in the middle. Can you see Scott, third from the second row, right in the middle? You can tell I'm stalling because Mark's stressing here. I met Scott. He was a 22-year-old wonder kid who was building on the product that I worked on this product team too, Commerce Server, arguably the second worst server product that Microsoft ever built. And I talked Scott into writing a chapter into this book. Little did I know that this super genius would turn into like an icon of Microsoft. So I run these two companies. I already told you about it. We're in Carlsbad, California. For those of you who have children, that's Legoland. And you're welcome to come visit, but I'm not going to that hellhole with you. All right, so Mark, I got a demo. I've stalled as long as I can. Can I demo, Mark? All right, so first off, let's take a peek at some currently shipping software. This is an application that Mark is going to help me out with. This is application shipping in a number of hospitals in the U.S. nationwide. I think it's actually spread across the world. It's built in WPF, and it is a great testament to the way we manipulate software today, or the use cases for manipulating software that aren't keyboard and mouse. In this world, these heart surgeons do 10 to 12 surgeries a day. They have 5 to 7 minutes in between surgeries, and they race from one surgery room to an intermediate room where they spew a bunch of medical mumbo-jumbo, and then boom, they're partying on someone's heart again. Historically, what these folks would do is a bunch of admins would type down what they're saying. In this world, this is going to be a tough session. In this world, they spew their medical mumbo-jumbo. It is captured in WAV files, and it is stuck in 3D space on this template version of the heart. You may or may not have noticed I'm touching my screen. I'm spinning this guy with my hands. We'll talk a little bit about this computer in a second, but I could just as easily do the mouse thing. What the surgeons do is they race in, they're scrubbed up and they're big 40-inch monitors, and they do something like this. Like in this world, you have stents or you have lesions. One props up an artery, one tears it down. Let me add, I'm going to design. So a template comes down from the cloud. They draw in the arteries the way they are in the patient. Here's the real magnetic resonant images, right? And they create something like this, the heart. Here, I'll write my name, Tim. So that's the way it appears, and then they drag a stent, and they said, I did the blah, 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 blah to this. But typically, they're not parting on the outside of the heart, right? These guys are on the inside of the heart. So let me turn that off, and I can put my fingers back on the screen, and I can zoom in, and if I knew what the hell I was looking at, I could, zoom right up in an aorta or something like that. Pretty cool, huh? I'm all about developer productivity. The reason I show you, not the least of which, is this is a good use case for touch, is that this 3D engine built in C# was done in 2 weeks, if you can believe that. And that's because the smart kid from Internology that built it, Kevin Kennedy, he has a math background. So he went out, searched the internet, found the vector-based graphics stuff in Java, pasted it into Visual Studio, added a bunch of semicolons, and boom, he's done. Wasn't that simple, obviously. But I'm telling you this because a lot of the stuff I show you today, you're more than welcome to have, including this 3D engine. So we've done the hard stuff for you. If you want to spin things in 3D, you are more than welcome to this code, okay? The next thing I want to show you is a video, and you'll see why I have to show you it in video. And Vance, are you ready for me with audio? I'm going to assume that's a yes. Let me set this up. This is the United States' most stupidest television show. How many of you have heard of this television show? And you admit it. Put your hands down. My females love this. My wife and my 18-year-old love this television show. This is the only medical show in the U.S. where the AMA, the American Medical Association, has wiped their hands. Every other medical show has AMA representation, to make sure that they say the right words and the right procedures. These people make shit up all the time. I said that word, didn't I? If I offended anybody, sorry. So let me show you this video. It's a Microsoft Surface application, and also a WPF Windows 7 application. You'll see in the background. I won't burden you with the show, right? Just 2 minutes of this, and, well, you'll see.
Keep an eye on Carrie.
I'll resect both atria and build new ones out of bovine pericardium. And during reconstruction, Dr. Hunt will stay with Linda using a human donor aorta to prepare the vessels for reimplantation.
And all of this in just 4 hours.
We have to be fast. We all set?
Let's go.
All right, prep her and page me when she's ready. Christina? Are you excited?
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Oh.
Good.
The fear of going back in is worse than actually doing it. Just getting back on the horse is all it is.
Wow, are you impressed? Yeah, John. So, what can I say interesting about that? Do you see, that's Dr. McDreamy or something like that. See how he leaned into Sandra Oh as the actress? How he leaned in at the minute because they're, I guess, an item or something. They had to shoot that 17 times because when he would lean in, his elbow would hit the Microsoft Surface and it would reorient the heart. And I don't know if you saw in the background, that was connected too. So these were generally nice people, although I didn't get to watch this particular thing. But my folks said they were generally nice people. And the point here is that you saw the heart, right? That took us like 2 weeks to build that Grey's Anatomy version of the heart. Did you see any Microsoft logos there? You saw our logo. Interestingly enough, ABC and Microsoft had this big deal going, multi-million-dollar deal with all the Windows licensing or commercials and such, and they got ugly sideways at the last minute. So they taped, you don't really notice, but they taped over in black tape the Microsoft logos, but they kept ours. Woo! All right. Moving right along. So I believe it or not, I used to do this, and yes, I have done the punch card thing, and we have come a long way in our computing devices. But touch-capable devices are certainly not new. We've had them for decades, believe it or not. What is new is touch-capable devices at a consumer price. I saw yesterday, I wonder if I'm allowed to tell you this. There's a large electronic manufacturer from Japan, based in Japan, who is releasing 40-inch HD-capable Windows 7 certified monitors. 40-inch HD. $1,500 retail. That is shocking. That is shocking to me. And believe it or not, this is the part I'm probably not supposed to tell you, but there are 80-inch monitors coming. So you programmers out there that like to have, spin up 10 different listings and you have them spread all over your little monitors, here's your dream computer, right? Or your dream monitor. That one's going to be a little bit more pricey, of course. But it's not crazy to think that we would go to 120-inch and 240-inch over the next few years. HD-capable, Windows-capable monitors, which means you can put your hands on them if you want, right? All right. So, oh yeah, I wanted to tell you about this little computer I'm using today. This isn't God's gift to computers by any stretch. This guy rates in Windows as a 5. If you're familiar with that rating control panel system, it rates your computer. If you're not familiar with this rating, you should do it because it'll point to you where you need to upgrade and what. I think the top end is 7.2, so it goes from like 0 to 7.2. Anybody? 7.9? Anybody know why it's 7.9 and why it's not 10? This is a good story that I'm definitely not supposed to tell you. The fancy Macintosh that's so expensive, G4 something or other, it came out like 2 years ago. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's like an $8,000 Macintosh. If you install Windows on it, it was Vista at the time, it broke the algorithm. It's so powerful, it broke the Windows algorithm for control panel system. It rated as a 7.9 out of 5. So they had to do a service pack to fix that. You know, you're looking at me like you don't believe me. All right, enough of that. So you probably saw that this computer is like $800. I can run Visual Studio off this. I do. Blend, all that type of stuff. So, all right, another demo. I like to show this one because it puts Silverlight in context. I like to show this one because it puts Silverlight in context. I like to show this one because it puts, oh, sorry, that was my fault. Mark switched me to D. All right, how about I run it and then I tell you how it's built. You know, last year I stood on stage here and I said, we're currently in Silverlight hysteria. You know, maybe 2-3 years ago we were in SharePoint hysteria. I think arguably now we're in HTML5 hysteria, yet we're a year away from effectively building those type of apps. It is important for me to point out to you, this is a Silverlight application. I just hit F5, right from Visual Studio. I built this application, believe it or not, I built this application on stage a few months back in Africa, in South Africa. These are pictures that I took. I'm not a photographer. Notice I'm doing the pinch gesture that Apple has made so prevalent in the browser. And yes, this runs in Firefox just as easily, runs on a Mac. There's a picture of my 18-year-old. That's a bad joke. Yeah, sure, Tim, go pet the cheetah. So why am I showing you this? I built this in 5 minutes on stage in a Silverlight presentation that I do. How do you do something like this in 5 minutes? Brilliant young engineers build a control for you. This is called a scatter view. You may know a scatter view from the Surface world. It's also in the WPF world. Silverlight is a tiny portion of WPF. It's important for me to point this out to you. For those of you who haven't jumped into Silverlight yet, it is important to know that lightweight runtime, which is 3.2 megs or something like that. What's the Silverlight runtime? 4.2 megs? Whatever it is exactly what Flash is. And there's a political reason for that. That's not a technical thing, right? It's always going to be just as big as Flash until the world changes. They could have a lightweight 80 meg download, and Silverlight could be the entire .NET framework. But Grandma Huckabee would on her 28.8 modem, would not deal with that, right? So Silverlight is a small portion of WPF. I'm telling you this because if you jump into Silverlight, you're going to reach, and you come from WPF or some other API that is robust and huge, like Win32, you're going to reach for a framework class that you know and love, and it's not going to be there, and you're going to have to build it. Okay, that's a political thing. It's not a technical thing. All right, so Silverlight does not have a scatter view control. Its API for multi-touch is weak at best. Its API is basically, I know something's been touched, I just don't know what has been touched, and I don't know where. Right? So brilliant engineers build scatter view controls like this that include all the trigonometry and the calculus and all that crap you don't want to deal with. And Tim gets on stage, he drags and drops a control, sets a couple properties, and boom, you have a cool little app like this. And yes, of course, you're more than welcome to this control. All right, moving on. By touching this. All right, and there it is. You guys can get the deck off ComNet and download that control. So the other thing that is relatively new in the way that we are building user interfaces for software and for computers is getting physical objects involved, right? That there are many use cases for this if you get creative. I think I've picked one that'll amuse you. You can tell I'm trying to amuse you today. The Microsoft Surface, the reason it's expensive, I assume you all know what a Surface is, and I think we're allowed to say that Surface 2 is coming like any day if it hasn't showed up in our office already. The reason it's expensive is it has cameras that look up, 5 cameras that look up, and it does recognition. It does a pretty darn good job of recognition. In fact, practically for free, you can put your finger down and orient an object based on the way your finger is pointing. And in C#, that is like you almost get that for free. It's pretty powerful. But it also recognizes a byte tag, Microsoft's own byte tag, and there's a number of things coming and such. Well, let me just show you the video by doing this. And I'll let go of this. And this is that Silverlight scatter view. By the way, I forgot to show you any source, so I might as well, for you people who love staring at code, it's got, what, 30, 40 lines of code. That's it. There's no C# in there. Right? That scatter view control has 2,500 lines of C#, but by me dragging, dropping, and setting the property, boom, I'm done. All right, what was I doing? I'm showing you a video. This video. Hi, this is Tim from Internology, and I'm here with Dan Hannon.
Hi there.
Hey, Dan. So, this is pretty amazing. This is Craps. You've built Craps for the Microsoft Surface in the R&D time that Internology gives you. Playtime, I call it. It's called Recess.
Recess. Research and educational coding to enhance software skills.
Fantastic.
Beautiful.
So in your recess, in your R&D time, you have actually built Craps.
So this is a fully functional craps game with the rules and the betting and everything. So the first thing you do is you come up and you have your chips and you try to place bets. But the UI is alerting you to the fact that you need to kind of establish your spot around the table. So the green guy is going to play right here. And
Because this is a multi-user game. Technically, I could be the red guy.
We're going to play together.
Okay.
So red chips over there, green chips over here. Before we roll, we have to place some bets. Most typical bet in craps is to play the pass line. So you just tap your chips down on wherever.
I won't do a most typical bet.
Yeah. I'm going to play the pass line. I'm going to play a couple of hard ways over here.
Okay, and I'll do 30 to
All right, so then to roll, the dice down here indicate that it's my roll. I'm green, so I'm going to flick the dice over here. We have fully 3D, WPF 3D dice up here. As we roll, keep your eye on those dice. They're semi-translucent. You can see through the top face down into the bottom. That was kind of fun to implement that.
Oh yeah, I didn't even notice
Full
that.
3D.
But it's got a little drop shadow on it. So
Yeah,
pure, true 3D here. Because we do have WPF.
Yeah. And then, so what happened there is in craps, I'll kind of explain as we go, but I rolled a 9, yep, so I established the point as a 9. The field bets, you bet that I would roll a 9, so you just won $25. You can flick that off with your finger if you want to cash out. Just, there it goes. Now you got a little extra in your bank. Everything else stays, and we roll again. A couple more things about what we did. We did an interesting gesture implementation here. So if I have my bet out here, let's just go bet up here on the 8. And as I place it down, hopefully you can see that, but there's a set of arrows on each side that let me, we call it the ratchet gesture, and so you can see my bet right next to it.
Oh,
I'm
that's
ratcheting it up or
fantastic.
down, $100, $200, $500. So let's let it ride high, $500 on 8. I can do the same thing anywhere else, ratchet it up, $200. I got a lot of cash to spend, so go ahead and spin some up there.
Yeah, I want
There you go, 1,000.
I want a party.
Maximum 2,000 bet. You're draining your pocket. Let's give it a whirl here. So,
You are getting to the acrylic dice.
yes.
My favorite part of this app.
Just added this in the last week. We got these cool acrylic dice. They're see-through. We got these from Microsoft. And you can't even tell on the camera, but they actually have a byte tag on each of the 6 faces. But what's really cool about it is the byte tag sticker is transparent. But they've got it set so the IR sensitivity, the infrared sensitivity on these tags is correct such that the cameras can recognize them. So instead of flicking with my finger, I'm going to roll these physical dice out here. And it's going to recognize the roll, represent it here, just sort of for informational purposes, and go ahead and play the game like normal.
That is awesome.
Is that sweet?
That is so awesome. It really makes you speculate about the way user interfaces are going to be done. And, you know, beyond keyboard and touching, really using
Definitely.
common objects. And
Physical objects.
You
yeah.
can't even see. I mean, even holding this up to my face, I can barely see the object tag in there. That
Right.
is very cool.
So you might, that's a little subtle thing that I did in the rules where, so he picked up that dice, he put the other one down, and we're not counting that dice yet in the roll because
it
I
hasn't rolled
I
it.
haven't re-rolled it, right? So that's the first roll of the second pair of die, right? So now if I pick this one up, roll it, Now that's a legitimate roll.
Outstanding.
Pick those up, roll, there goes all the activity, flick your bets off. I'm up a couple thousand, how you doing?
I'm getting my butt kicked.
All right.
Just like usual. Hey, Dan,
That's right.
This is awesome. This is absolutely awesome. Thanks so much for showing this.
Yep, glad to do it.
Okay. So the use cases there are endless. For a major hotel, we did the wedding planner thing. You know, you sit down with the father-in-law and the happy couple, and I don't know if you're old like me, you know how expensive this is. Well, they upsell people because there's, you move the bar in, and you have the guest list, and you move the mean grandma to the back and the tables, and you just keep adding, and it keeps adding to the cost of that wedding. I would have loved to demo the Surface stuff in person, but there's a session after this. It's 150 pounds. You need a HD camera above it, so it's logistically impossible. So I hope it's okay if I do the video thing for the Surface stuff. Okay, so where are we going to next? We already talked about this. We're going to here and here. Oh, right. The other thing we've seen over the last few years, 2-3 years, is this fascination with games, with Xbox and all these things. And smart folks are out there doing computer-based learning based on games. It is not my world. And you probably figured out that I have no designer attributes in any way, shape, or form. I have not been formally trained as a designer or a UX or a UI guy. I'm just fascinated with it. My first experience with usability was on that first product team I worked at Microsoft. They have the elaborate multi-million-dollar usability labs with the one-way mirror, and they drag people off the street, and you watch them use your software. And we were very proud of a control we built. For those of you who have gray hair, remember the Flupel control, the file uploader control? It's the first web control that Microsoft did where you could go to the file system and drag a file, like a Word document on a web page, and it would suck it up and put it in your... You're looking at me like I'm insane. Remember this control? I mean, you take it for granted now, but my team built that. We pulled in 20 people off the street, or they did, and we watched 20 people in a row fail, even though they had very specific instructions on what to do. And it was because the poor design we did on the actual graphic, which kind of looked like a toilet bowl. They could not figure out where to drop this thing and what would happen. That's my sobering moment to usability. In any event, we've seen over the last few years, and then some of these universities are starting to train on it, getting not just kids, but adults involved in game-based learning with touch and interaction and physical devices. So a good example of that is a project we did for NASA. And I don't know how much you know about this world, but and for those of you who are not from the U.S., NASA has come under intense scrutiny over the last few years because of their budget. They are partying out there in Mars, and it's costing a bloody fortune. So to defend their budget, they have done or had us do some online learning type things. I can't take you through this entire game for a number of reasons, not the least of which is I'm not smart enough to figure out how to win. Ultimately, you do this computer-based learning game to learn what it takes to put on a rocket ship to send it to Mars, and then how much science you're going to get back for it. So I'll pick this lander thing, and I could just as easily, in fact, I probably should be touching the screen, because this is a fully multi-touch application that is available in WPF and Silverlight, so you can do this over the browser. Oh, and the Surface. It runs in all NASA-related facilities like the Smithsonian Institute and museums and things like that. So anyways, the deal here, and again, I can't take you through all the way because it'll take too long and I'll probably fail. But I can't take you all the way to where the rocket ship launches, the 10, 9, 8. But I'll show you a little bit about the app and tell you that it has been magnificently successful because because young and old alike walk up to this thing and they try to launch the rocket ship. And in the process, they learn about how much it costs and what it takes to do this type of stuff. So you saw me drag a payload shroud. This is just demo data. I don't have enough space for all the cool videos. Right now, what would be playing is some gal at NASA would be saying, the payload shroud is the blah, 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 and da, 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 and you have a choice. And I would have like 20 different payload shrouds. I dragged this one, and it cost me $10 million, right? And it is 7 tons. Okay, so I'm done with that guy. Ultimately, you know, I got to pick a rocket, and there goes our video problem again. So I want this rocket. And that cost me another $75 million, and that was 90 tons. You know where I'm going here, right? I don't need to drag you through this game. This has been wildly successful, and it's solely because it's a game. Solely because it's a game. All right, let me move on, especially since my video is flickering. All right, anybody ever heard of this thing? The single... What is the deal with this? Oh, I put it up there. The biggest selling, the largest selling, the most selling electronic device ever in the history of mankind. This little guy over last Christmas moved the Microsoft financials significantly. The interesting thing about the Microsoft Kinect, and I assume because they sold so many of these things, that at least half of you have one of these, is that Microsoft went, or the Xbox team went to the big game makers, and there's like 20 of them, right? Electronic Arts and all those companies, a couple years ago, and said, we're going to build this gesture-based interface to the Xbox. And none of the software companies believed them. That is why the Kinect shipped without any real games that my 15-year-old want to play. Right? You'll notice over the next few months, like that Michael Jackson dancing thing just came out, it's taken a year for the game companies to catch up. And so you're going to see a plethora of Kinect games over the next few months. I find that pretty interesting that they did this. But you've probably also seen that, folks like us are building software interfaces for Kinect. And we have 2 projects in production. I'm going to wave my hands at this thing in a second, and you're going to laugh because I'm going to flail. But we do have a couple apps in production. The compelling thing about this device is, again, it's at a consumer cost. It's $149, which means, God, it probably costs Microsoft, what, $30 to make? It also means a year from now, we can all assume a Kinect 2 with much better fidelity, at half the price, right? That's kind of sort of a contortion of Moore's law. We can expect a better one in about a year that's half the cost. If you don't know the mechanics of this guy, it's basically a 3D camera, and it does have competition. You know, there are other 3D cameras out there. So the deal is, before I start going like this, the deal is, they call a hack, and I'm sure some of you are familiar with this. Some smart open source folks have built an API to the USB port of the Kinect. This is not a native API, okay? You with me? That's why they call it a hack. It's not an official Microsoft thing. It is we're just coding to the USB port. So unfortunately, at least half of the Kinect goodness we don't get. I'm a good news, bad news, guys. I'm telling you the bad news first. All right, so audio we don't get. So if I'm going like this flailing and I just say like select or choose it or whatever, we don't have audio interface yet. There is a SDK coming from Microsoft, a real SDK within weeks, which is a very, very good thing for companies like us because we build kiosk software. If you're in an airport, you don't want to touch anything, right? And then I hate to get into, I'm not being filmed so I can do this. Women, close your eyes. If you're in a restroom, men, I mean, you don't want to touch a screen in front of you while you're peeing, right? You just want to go like this, right? Don't make me do the women version of that. So again, the use cases are endless for this type of interface, but we're in our infancy. The other bad news is when Microsoft releases this real SDK, which means, you know, we're going to have a beautiful API in .NET for this thing. They're going to make it very easy for us to build gesture-based interfaces to our software, right? You're not always going to, in a CRUD app, there's no reason to go like this, you know, if you're just typing data. But there are many use cases for software. So the other bad news is when they do release this SDK, it is in a non-commercial manner, meaning research only. We do a lot of healthcare software, so that's where our implementations are. But for the kiosk company, you know, we have to have a commercial license to that, so we're kind of stuck until they figure out how much they're going to charge us for this SDK, okay? And that'll be in months too. All right, have I set it up enough? All right, here we go. Oh, I think I already talked about this, but and if you've never seen inside a Kinect, you know, there are the 2-3 cameras that make it 3D. All righty then, I don't want to do that just yet. I want to do this, and we're coming over here. So we have built basically a control panel application and a service for interfacing the Kinect. This has not been publicly seen yet because it's going to cause a little bit of hysteria. If you look out on the internet, you'll see a number of really cool demo-type apps with Kinect, but they're always embedded in the application itself. We have built a generic Windows interface for Kinect. One might speculate the Kinect team took a look at this a couple, 3 weeks ago and went, holy shit, that's awesome. Maybe we should do that, right? One might speculate that the next versions of Windows might have something like this, so that, you know, you mouse and keyboard, touch, and then this type of stuff, native in Windows. So any application, your applications can run gesture-based based on this. So I don't need to show you much about this because it isn't about this little application, which is very beta right now. But I'll show you a few things. So I can put my camera on, and, oh, I guess I want to connect to the device. It's right here, right? It's plugged into my USB port. I don't have a lot of room on stage. Me and my buddy Vance in the back tried so I could stand there, and so you could see me waving at it, but those two lights are killing us. So I got to do it this way. So am I connected? I am not connected. I threw an exception. Boy, not my day. All right, please hold. Hang on. So I told you it's very beta. Didn't I? Did I set that up? All right, let's do this. Okay, connect. Please, God, please connect. There, thank you. Okay, happy day for me. So I'm going to turn the preview on. There I am. Or I'm not there yet, but let me get it in the bottom right. Okay. Let's see. I'm outputting. So right now, I'm going to configure it so I send mouse events, and then I'll show you Windows 7 Touch events in a second. You'll find this interesting. So in the control panel, we've built an interface. So I'm waving, right? And then I want to, come back. See, I already selected something. Let me get a, see what happened there? I chose, I just want this. So that wall, I'm trying to get to that wall. Okay, getting the Kinect to behave. Right, so I'm trying to get to the wall, so I push through. See the little black dot? I'm pushing through the wall. That's my click event. That's Vance's, or that's the Mark's audio or video problem. Right, so I can configure this thing to distance and all that. So there is a configuration involved. I can have two. It's multi-user, so I could drag one of you guys up on the stage and we can all do the pinch gesture at once. If we had the physical dexterity to do it, which you'll see I do not. Some of my engineers are very good at this. I am not. So let's get a good use case of some scenario. All right, so here is our kiosk software running at the come back here, running at the Trump Hotel and Towers in New York. If I could get my act together, I could. God darn it! See what I keep doing? I keep doing the minimize thing. All right, forget that. I flailed. Let's do this. I'm going to go to direct mapping, meaning it's going to automatically, as opposed to me figuring out where the wall is, it's going to figure it out for me. And then I'm not going to send mouse events. I'm going straight to the party, and we'll send some touch events. And let's see. Everyone cross your fingers. That's the Chevy. I should fall over backwards. That's the Chevy Chase thing. All right, so let me get that. Yeah, thank God. There we go. The pinch gesture. Does that kick ass or what? Awesome. Gratuitous applause. Now, because you gave me the gratuitous applause, I got to tell you a story. Yesterday in the speaker room, I'm showing all these guys this. They're like, that's awesome and they're cool. And ultimately, it gets so frustrating that, you're like this. So Joe Marini, he does a session here. I don't know if he's done it yet. He does a session on design for mobility. It's a great session. Microsoft guy Joe Marini, you should see this. So he invented a new gesture. Remember the ratchet gesture from the Craps application? And we've seen a couple other gestures. Joe Marini's, if you're like me and you suspend your computer, you sleep your computer or you hibernate it, and you do it over and over and over, ultimately you have to reboot Windows, right? The Mac people figure this out. Apple figured this out. But, right, you have to reboot Windows after about a week, especially if you're moving from network stack. So you know what the restart gesture is, according to Joe Marini? I'm not being filmed. It's this. All right. All right. We need to wrap this up. All right, believe it or not, and I would love to demo this, but this takes a lot more tuning than I have the capability to do. The first time I saw this, I was just blown away. So we've talked about putting your hands on the screen. We've talked about interaction with physical objects. You just saw me flail with the gesture thing, right? Believe it or not, at a consumer cost, you can think at your software. This is the the Motive Epic headset. The demo I saw from these brilliant people, they dragged somebody out of the stage. They did a 10-minute training type thing. He's wearing this headset, and he was manipulating software by thinking at it for $300. You may find that hard to believe, so I'm going to show you. I wish I could show you in person, so I got to do a video for this. So here it is, a conscious and non-conscious interface. Let me give you a use case for this, because this is so futuristic, it's kind of hard to get your arms around. So why would you think it's software? You know? A great use case would be, many of you programmers listen to music while you code, right? You put the headset on, right? In Windows and in the Apple world, you choose favorites, so that the songs you hate don't come up. Right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Would it not be powerful if the computer just figured out that you liked the music and rated it? That is a perfect use case. It's beyond Microsoft, right? That's clearly an Apple thing, and they'll invent that first. But that would be a good use case for manipulating software by thinking at it. So let me show you the video. Probably want me to party on Connect while we do Q&A, so I'll just leave that running. And here, and here.
Future gamers won't need a joystick or a paddle. They'll interact with their games directly from their brains, using devices like the Epic headset from Emotive.
Our whole interaction with the virtual world is going to be far more natural. We'll be able to use our brain and our facial expressions and our emotional experiences to really experience content in an entirely new way. And what we've created is a brain-computer interface that really transforms the way that humans interact with machines.
The Emotive Epic wireless headset has 16 independent sensors that pick up electrical brain signals on the surface of the scalp.
We identify a signature for a particular thought or a particular emotion, and then in real time, we classify those brain patterns.
So when you think it, it happens on the screen.
You think push, the object propels forward.
So now my master's showing me how to pull using that tree. Then he'll ask me to focus all my thoughts on pulling that tree towards me.
There are 13 individual detections: push, pull, lift, drop, left, right, and then rotation in 6 different axes in a 3D environment.
You can even visualize an object disappearing, and it will. But the headset is more than just a brain-powered joystick. It allows the game to detect whether or not you're actually having fun.
It observes your experiences: excitement versus calmness, immersion, tension, frustration, engagement.
There are these mischievous spirit wisps that instead of pressing a button, I can scare away just by looking fierce. So, and you can notice by the sky color that I enjoy that part.
So when it comes to future game playing, keep an open mind.
We're really only at the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's possible.
So will all this innovation in virtual reality gaming spell the end of a good old-fashioned night out at the movies?
Crazy, huh? All right, here's the more good news. The thing's only $299 and they're just about ready to ship a version 2, and they give you the C# with the SDK. It's probably safe to tell you that there are a number of these devices that are living in Microsoft Research. Next time I get up on stage in front of you guys, I'm going to put the headset on, I promise, and think it's some software. Pretty darn cool, pretty space age, but I don't think it's much of a stretch to think that within the next 10 years, we'll have neural-based interfaces to computers. All right, so this is my definition of NUI, of the natural user interface. It's touching the computer. Again, it's not every use case. For a pure CRUD application, there may be no reason in the world to stick your hands on the computer. It's also gesture capable, which is in its infancy. I think you saw. I didn't do a good job pointing it out, but I did tell you I can manipulate windows with that Connect app. However, getting that little red X in the top right for me is almost impossible. Even getting the Start button in Windows is very difficult. With the hacked API, with the USB-based API, we just don't have the fidelity. Our real version of that software, I think I can tell you, or you could speculate, you'll be able to shout at the thing and say like magnify or zoom and use the Windows magnifier to make the little red X bigger. You know, I showed you that kiosk software on purpose because the objects are huge and I could get fidelity of touch or gesture to do that. But it makes sense that if you're flailing to say zoom, zoom in, zoom out, and interact also with your voice to these things. It'd be realistic within 12 months to see legitimate commercialized applications with gesture base, especially in that airport scenario. Well, I can tell you right now, we're going to do it as soon as Microsoft can figure out how much they're going to charge us for the API. Okay? And then, of course, neural-capable interfaces, whether it's figuring out for you, non-conscious, and the use case would be that music thing I gave you, right? Or consciously, you're moving things around screen. You know, I have a dream and for my bucket list, and it's to build software for the literally tens of millions of people around the world who are completely sound of mind but do not have control over their physical body, right? Multiple sclerosis, paraplegics, quadriplegics. This gives me tingles just to talk about it. This type of stuff has the capability to enrich these people's lives dramatically. That's truly my dream. And I hope that some of you are going to start thinking about this stuff too. If I've done my mission correctly, I've got you thinking. We didn't stare at any C-sharp. If you really want to stare at C-sharp, here, hang on. Let's stare at some C-sharp. Here you go. We were laughing about, I got to turn that Connect thing off. Camera, go off. There. Here's your C-sharp for you programmers. We were laughing about this in the speaker room yesterday. Anybody know what that does? Neither do I. This is some code from the scatter view. I don't know what the heck that constant is, that 57 point whatever it is. I think that's a tolerance for, because all touch devices work slightly differently. And I barely can understand tan from, college calculus. Atan, arctangent. And did you also notice, while the video goes out, it'll come back in a second here, it's not just an arctangent, it's arctangent 2. What's that? Anyways, remember, the power of us is we depend on controls. We have smart 25-year-olds to do this stuff. We just drag and drop and set properties, right? All right. They told me to save 15 minutes for Q&A because they speculated we're going to have some, and I think I've done a darn good job of that. So in my perfect world, we'd be building the holodeck, and I could hang out with beautiful synthetic women all the time. So that's what you guys are going to build. So, being that said, if I did my job correctly, I got you thinking. Today at 1:30 in this room, my good friend Brian Randall is doing a complimentary session called Microsoft Expression for Developers. So I showed you what's being done. He's going to show you a little bit of how to do it in Expression Blend. Most of us programmers live solely in Visual Studio. He's going to show you why you need to have Blend in your mix. That's 1:30 in this room. So if I've done my job correctly, I got you thinking about the future and how we're going to build user interfaces. If you want any of this stuff, my email address is up there somewhere. I'm not going to save your email address. I'm not going to put it on a list. I don't even know how to do that, to tell you the truth. But I got to put a bunch of stuff up on the internet so you can download it if you want anything from this session. So feel free to write that email address down. And with that, I am done. Thank you for coming. Make sure and attend Brian Randall's session, and have a great Tech Ed. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Anyone? Flora, I see you out there. You going to add a question or comment? Hi, Flora. Yes, sir. If you mind, they're taping it, so could you put it on the microphone? Can you stand next to a microphone? Lauren?
Tim?
It is you, Lauren. The world-famous Lauren Goodman is in the audience today.
My question for you is, where do you see the initial business applications for this?
Lauren's question is, hey, Tim, that was a bunch of whimsical, fun stuff to amuse people. Where does the metal hit the, what's that saying? Where's the rubber hit the road on this? What are typical applications for business? Well, it's not CRUD, in my opinion. Again, just my opinion. It's definitely not CRUD, and maybe 3/4 of software out there is CRUD. So it's those niche applications. It's the airport scenario. It's the restroom scenario. It is the paraplegic, quadriplegic scenario. It's those off-the-wall type things that don't require a keyboard. I think I've hammered at home that I'm old. I started using computers before the mouse. I remember when the mouse came and me and my buddies saying, or my coworkers saying, holy shit, this is difficult. Well, why would you take your right hand off the keyboard to grab this thing? Right? I remember, and some of you remember this, right? This is wild stuff. We're going to have that learning curve for these type of interfaces. The touch thing is interesting in software. I don't know if you know who Rocky Laka and I is, but we joke about once you get used to taking your hand off the mouse and touching the screen, you walk to another computer that's not touch capable and you touch it. So we've got this chasm between interfaces that is going to make, as Lauren's question is so poignantly hammered at me, it's going to make that usability thing a little bit challenging. In generic terms, gesture-based interfaces for Windows, it's going to be, you saw me flail. We're a long way from that, from doing that effectively, unless the little red X can get bigger. So, any other questions, comments? What's a question I always get? The question... Ouch. The question was, did I work on Microsoft Bob? No, but Melinda Gates did. All right. Great question. That's another question I get. And the question was, in the Craps app, the gambling app, and one might speculate that Internology builds a lot of software for the gaming industry. In fact, that is a really interesting industry. The question was, could you use regular dice? No. Those acrylic dice had a byte tag with an IR sensitivity set just enough that the Surface could recognize them. The Surface recognizes a byte tag, but it is not a stretch to speculate that we could use real objects in a Surface-type environment very soon, where it does recognize the 5 digits as opposed to a byte, the 6, 9 dots as opposed to a byte tag. That is very realistic. Or a barcode. The Surface can't do a barcode right now. It's very realistic to think it can. I mean, you've seen the bit patterns and byte patterns coming out where you put your phone. I mean, that's getting prevalent. The use case for us was the San Diego Zoo, the world-famous San Diego Zoo. You go in front of an exhibit, and you put your phone up, and it uses the Microsoft tag, and it pulls content to your telephone. A great use case for that type of thing. But wouldn't it be better if you didn't have to do that? You just focused your phone at it, and it recognized that it was a phone, not a byte tag. That's very realistic within a couple years. The Surface is expensive for a reason. And how much is it? It's Surface 1 was like $12,000. You're gonna have to help me out here. And then Surface 2, are we allowed to talk about Surface 2 and how much it costs? Thank you. You said it. My buddy said it. $7,500 is the new Surface, which is pretty kick-ass. It's made by Samsung. It's an awesome device. But $7,500 is a lot more than a $1,500 40-inch HD-capable Windows 7 monitor. Still a lot, and that's because of the cameras that are looking up. Make sense? That's our struggle right now, is whether to go the Surface route, and get the object recognition, or use low-cost Windows 7 capable devices that you touch. We have a wild project with one of those 80-inch screens, and multiple people put their hands on the screen at the same time, but we don't have any recognition. So, yes, sir.
So being the only network guy in the room, I thought I'd have to come up with a good question. You didn't really talk about this, and I'm sure it would spawn a whole other presentation, but where do you see augmented reality and 3D interfaces really breaking down the 2D touch and push type interfaces?
Great question. We did a project. The question, to repeat it for the video, is about augmented reality. And then having the augmented reality world meld with the gesture-based world. For me, I get my arms around augmented reality, like what that is the use case would be my phone. I'm driving down the street, I see a billboard, and it says Coca-Cola, right? Actually, for me, in my world, it would say, Coors Light, and I point my or martini, and I point my phone at it, and it recognizes the logo, sends the logo, or it captures the logo, sends it up to the cloud. Some service in the cloud figures out, pulls apart that logo, figures out that it's Coors Light, and boom, I have an electronic coupon for $5 off a case of Coors Light, and it's showing me in a what do you call this? A 3D map where all the places within a mile that sell this Coors Light and that will take my coupon. We have this stuff right now. We worked on a project for an amazing company in LA that does this stuff. We have this stuff. Now, the augmented reality thing or the gesture-based thing means, wow, this is crazy futuristic. But I guess that billboard, you'd go like this, right? I guess. And you'd get that information because the billboard would have the electronics to recognize the gesture. At $150, it is not a stretch to think that we could have a 3D camera in every physical billboard out there. We've got some patented things that are scary big brother, or not patent pending type stuff that we've built that are scary big brother. And that is with fidelity, meaning 100 feet. We can tell who's looking at the advertisement and what race they are by the color of their skin. That is and how long they looked at it. So what advertisers want, right? They want to know who's looking at their ads. They want more than just clicking through, because you don't click through ads constantly, right? Sometimes just by looking at the Coors Light silver bullet train with the pretty girls means you're thinking about it and you're ultimately going to buy it. That's what advertisers want. If you could tell advertisers who's looking at your ad and for how long and what race they are just by the color of their skin, that is scary big brother, right? That is real. We've built that. That is realistic right now. And it's not like my companies are a bunch of super geniuses. I mean, this is just .NET. It's just frameworks, right? We're not down in the metal. We're not slinging any C++ anymore by any stretch, right? You're looking at me like, holy shit, you're evil. Can anybody, let me turn this on you. Can anybody think of a better use case? Because that one wasn't that good for combining NUI, gesture-based or touch, with augmented reality. I haven't even really thought that through. Now you got me thinking. Thank you, network guy, evil network guy that prevents us from shipping. You're just doing this because we're friends, aren't we? Aren't you? The use case was evals. The evals are very important to some people here at TechEd, but it's a pain in the ass to fill them out, right? So I'm supposed to tell you, please fill out the evals. I do read the comments, absolutely, because this is actually a keynote. You probably figured it out that I kind of up-leveled a bit. Wouldn't it be great to just think the emails like, God, the evals. God, I hate Tim. Boom, one in presenter, and what a pompous little asshole. Boom. Anything else? How am I doing? I have 5 minutes before they drag me off stage. Anything else? Lauren, I know you have something space age.
No, my comment was, I was thinking, I've read this recently, but like the lines in a football field, like they superimpose, is like the best example of augmented.
That is a great example. Let me repeat it because I know you didn't hear it and it's got to go on the video. Fox has been a leader. Fox Television has been a leader in augmented reality, and Lauren's use case was the lines in a football game. You know how they superimpose the yard lines. For you Europeans, this would be American football, the popular one with all the money behind it. Yeah, that one. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
The football played by 2 countries in the world as opposed to the football played by 150 countries.
I refuse to repeat that comment on video. And Fox also did the augmented reality thing that failed dramatically, and that's in hockey, where the little blue thing followed the puck around. You know, they truly are a leader in this space. Yeah, great use case. Yes, sir.
I would say probably another one is my company is doing virtual reality, where when you're watching TV and you think a sports person from the NBA is actually sitting in a studio, they're not.
This deserves the microphone. Do you mind hopping up? And please say your company name. That sounds really cool.
So I work for ESPN. And,
da-da-da, da-da-da.
So what we're doing today is when you're watching a clip with an NBA player and they look like they're on the set, they're not. They're in Florida, they're in London, and I mean, full gestures, you think they're right there. I have no idea.
The real only TV I watch is ESPN, short of a little comedy channel, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And I beg of you to let us help you build software. Yeah, great use case. ESPN truly is a leader in the 3D thing, too. I don't know if you... And they have the best HD, right? Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt, they've made the big investments in HD. Yeah, patented, is the gentleman said. Their 3D is so incredible. So we can speculate on that, too. You know, true interactive television where, you know, you're watching, who's an obnoxious ESPN? Oh, Charles Barkley. I'm watching Charles, oh, he's TNT, isn't he? Right. Anyways, I'm watching an obnoxious Barry Melrose. I'm watching Barry Melrose talk about hockey, and he's got that long hair, and he's like much older than me, and he's got an earring and all this, and I just want to go, and move to the next thing, right? That would, and ESPN does a great job. If you don't live in this world, ESPN does a great job of telling you what is coming, what they're currently talking about, and what is coming. You could totally see these guys allowing you to just skip forward. Like, I don't care about hockey. I don't care about American football. You know, where's the English Premier League? You know, it's not there because we don't care. So, I know there's other Europeans here, my friends right here. I'm just kidding. I love soccer. I love it. Yeah. One more quickie if you have a question, comment. Otherwise, I'm getting dragged off stage. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks for coming.